Welcome to Inside the PSC, an inside look at the inner workings of the Public Service Commission of West Virginia. I'm your host, Karen Hall, and my guest today is Chairman Charlotte R. Lane. We're going to be talking about the question of electric reliability, but before that, I want to start with a video that the chairman recorded earlier about the importance of serving the state and some of the history of the state of West Virginia. Let's take a look.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Lane, Chairman of the West Virginia Public Service Commission. In 1861, as the Civil War raged and brother fought against brother, the counties in the western part of Virginia began the process of seceding from the eastern part of the state. Our state constitution was ratified in March 1863, and on June 20, 1863, West Virginia became the 35th state in the nation, allied with the Union forces in the war. Today, June 20, is a state holiday known as West Virginia Day. The roots of our citizens run deep in the values that our founders brought to this land. Making a life in these mountains and valleys was never easy. To endure, people had to be strong and independent. Mountaineers are always free, after all. At the same time, they understood the value of community and cooperation to survive and grow. Their work and sacrifice made West Virginia the wild, wonderful home we love. I can think of no better way to honor that heritage than by serving the state and the citizens of West Virginia. In fact, I have dedicated my life to doing just that. I have worked with many others who are equally committed to the welfare of West Virginia. As we celebrate our beautiful state, I want to encourage you to consider doing the same. Most state agencies are headquartered in Charleston, but there are employees in every corner of the state. Job opportunities range from cooks and secretaries to attorneys and historians and everything in between. Some of you might even consider running for office in the state Senate or House of Delegates. The benefits of working for the state are considerable. State employees enjoy reliable health insurance packages, safe working conditions, and a healthy retirement program. Most of all, there is a deep satisfaction that comes from knowing that you are part of the workforce that keeps West Virginia moving forward and growing stronger. You can build a rewarding career in service to the state of West Virginia.
An excellent message. And now we're going to hear from the chairman herself. Welcome, Chairman Lane. So glad to have you with us again.
I am glad to be back. Thank you.
All right. Now, let's get right to this question. In May, West Virginia, in conjunction with more than half the states in the nation, filed a lawsuit against the federal government over enforcement of new air pollution standards. You supplied a lengthy sworn statement that was central to asking the federal courts to delay implementation of those rules. They were originally set to take effect on July 8th. So in that statement, you asserted that the final rule effectively mandates that the shutdown of all coal-fired generation, and that generation alone is critical to maintaining energy reliability in the United States. So could you walk us through your statement and the thought process that went into that?
Yes, as chairman of the Public Service Commission, my number one job is to keep the lights on. And to keep the lights on, we need to have a reliable source of power, and that is coal. We need to have power 24 hours a day, and that is what is provided by coal. We have several coal-fired plants in West Virginia, and they are essential to keeping the lights on not only in West Virginia, but in other parts of the country. So the EPA coming in and putting on these rules that are they're unrealistic, they defy common sense, they are expensive, and in some instances, the EPA is trying to tell us to use technology that is not even proven. And so, because of the devastating effect that these rules would have on not only the reliability, but our economy and coal mining jobs and our tax base. We, along with several other states, have filed suit trying to delay implementation of these rules or change the rules altogether. And so we will just have to wait and see what happens. But it was really important to me to participate in this because even though we have solar and windmills in West Virginia, those are intermittent power, and they do not run when the sun doesn't shine and when the wind doesn't blow. So we have to rely upon our coal-fired plants. And in order to do that, we have to challenge these EPA rules, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, very good. And now I understand that one of those technologies you were talking about, one of the things that was mandated was called carbon sequestration. And for people who don't understand, that is taking the carbon and the smoke out of the air that's produced by the coal-fired plants and storing it in underground caverns or caves or other underground facilities so that it's removed from the air. And I know I've heard of carbon sequestration before, but is that really a proven technology?
No, it's not only not proven, but it is dreadfully expensive. Years and years ago, APCO tried that at the Mountaineer plant in West Virginia, and it didn't go through, not to fruition. But in order to use that technology, even if it were proven, would cost billions of dollars. And I'm not sure that the effect of it would be enough to make any difference in air quality, but our ratepayers would be paying for that. So in addition to what our ratepayers are already paying for all of the air pollution controls that are on our plants now that have been mandated over the years, this new technology would add billions of dollars that have to be paid for by the ratepayers. And that's just not right. And we are going to fight that tooth and nail until the courts tell us that we're wrong.
Okay, well, as a ratepayer, I appreciate you looking out for us. Now, I've heard you say many times that West Virginia is one of the few states that is being realistic about how to keep the lights on in the country. Explain what you mean by that.
Lots of states across the country have these renewable mandates. And as part of the renewable mandates, they are closing coal-fired plants. And there are now national studies that people are starting to pay attention to that the coal-fired closures would be happening faster than any replacement for that electricity. And that's got people taking notice. And what we don't want to have happen, we don't want to have blackouts and we don't want to have brownouts. And all that I am advocating, and when I talk across the country to other state commissions and even the EPA, that look, let's do this in a logical basis. Look at the timeline. Figure out when all of these renewables are going to come online or when all of these new sources are going to come online, and time the closures in conjunction with that so that we still have reliable power.
That makes sense. And as most states are looking at energy transition, it just seems like the stakes are different in West Virginia. Do you think that's the case, and can you help us understand why West Virginia is different and what's at stake for us?
West Virginia has long been known as an energy state, and we are. We have coal plants, we have electricity fueled by natural gas, we have wind, and we have solar. And the legislature and our state government are even looking at nuclear facilities. But for the time being, 90% of our energy in West Virginia comes from coal. And so if we lose our coal-fired plants, then we are going to be at the, have to rely upon somebody else to provide our power. And quite frankly, I don't want to rely upon anybody else. I want to do it ourselves here in West Virginia.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And as you point out, West Virginia is known for its extraction energy. It's coal, oil, natural gas, and those things play a significant role in energy production and the economic vitality of the state. So as you said, we do generate 90% of our electric energy through the use of coal. So that makes coal also an economic element in the fabric of the state. Does that factor into how you, as a regulator, determine what is in the best interest of the people?
Yes, our state statute says that when we look at cases, we have to balance all of the interests. We have to balance the interests of the ratepayer, the utility, and the state's economy as a whole. Now, our coal-fired plants and our electricity generation generates a lot of taxes throughout the state, and it also means an awful lot of jobs. And I'm not even talking about the ancillary jobs of coal mining and the truckers and all of that. But a big portion of our economy is based upon coal, and it is, and we need to protect that.
Yeah. Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm going to refer to my notes here. NERC is the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. It's a nonprofit international regulatory authority whose mission is to ensure the effective and efficient reduction of risks to the reliability and security of the U.S. power grid. And NERC's 10-year reliability assessment warns that environmental regulations and energy policies that it calls overly rigid can jeopardize what it refers to as the orderly transition of the resource mix. Do you see West Virginia from a regional perspective as being sort of a safety net for other states in our area?
Yes, and I talked to my fellow commissioners in other states and keep saying that we need to keep our coal-fired plants open so that we can help other states that are not going to have this reliable source of power. And so, yes, I see that we are exercising common sense, and I am hoping after people read this NERC report that they will start waking up and saying, hey, let's slow this down and let's use some common sense and let's see the long-range plan here as to where we get from here to there and still keep the lights on.
Yeah, I'm really glad that there are other organizations that are looking at this and being concerned about the safety and security of our power grid. And I'm going to shift gears with you a little bit, but before we do that, we're going to take a quick break and watch another video. This is something that we got a lot of good response to. It was one that you did a while back explaining how a rate case works. So let's take a look.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Lane, Chairman of the West Virginia Public Service Commission. With several rate cases pending before the Public Service Commission, I thought it might be helpful to explain what happens when a utility applies for a rate increase. The original filing consists of testimony from utility officials and documentation to justify the amount requested. That information includes an accounting of money the utility hopes to recoup and the estimated cost of future projects. The Commission orders the utility to publish a legal notice stating the proposed charges. It then suspends the proposed rates so the utility cannot change its rates until the Commission rules on the case. As soon as the case is filed, Commission staff begins to audit the information. PSC staff includes accountants, engineers, and attorneys who have specialized knowledge of the rate-making process. Once their audit is complete, staff files their recommendations to the Commission. Meanwhile, the Commission and other parties review all of the materials filed. Staff, the Consumer Advocate Division, and other interveners ask the utility for more information, and those answers and questions are reviewed by all of the parties. In some cases, a settlement may be proposed and considered. During this phase, the Commission issues a procedural schedule including public comment hearings. Throughout the process, we receive and read written and online comments from the public. Finally, an evidentiary hearing is held. All the evidence is entered into the record, and the witnesses for each of the parties are questioned and cross-examined. After all the information is received, the Commission analyzes all of the testimony, staff recommendations, and public comments. We discuss all possible solutions, and our decision is set forth in the final order. If the rates change, the utility files a new tariff, and the new rates go into effect. And that is how a rate case works.
Informative as always. And now we return to our conversation with Chairman Lane. Chairman, the Public Service Commission as a regulatory body is not anti-renewable energy. I know that's a fact because the Commission regularly grants permission for solar and wind energy projects to be built. Just last April, you gave permission for one of the largest gas-fired electric plants in the country to be built in, I think, Doddridge County.
Yes.
And that plant itself, I think, is going to produce enough electricity on an annual basis to fire 1.8 million homes. And that's really quite something.
That would be enough for all of West Virginians.
That's amazing. Yes, it is. And so does that mean that you favor what they call the all of the above?
I've always favored all of the above. We have to be realistic, and we have to use common sense, and there are customers out there that want renewable energy, and we recognize that. And when projects are brought to the Commission, then we listen to them very carefully. We make sure that our rules are followed. We make sure that it's in the public interest to locate these facilities. And yes, so we do solar and wind, and we did the project, or we okayed the project up in Doddridge County, and I can't wait for that to be built. And in the meantime, while all of this is ongoing, we still have our coal-fired plants running.
That's great. And I mean, I've seen recently, there was a picture in the Dominion Post of a huge solar project that was just built outside of Morgantown. And I know also in April you okayed a solar power plant with battery storage in Mineral County. So where do you think these resources like wind and solar paired with the storage would have the strongest impact for service in West Virginia?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
How do you think they can best fit into the overall energy picture?
I think they're all integrated into the picture, and of course we're all part of the PJM system, and a lot of this power is sold into the PJM system and then comes back to us. So all of these resources will be part of the PJM system. And not only people in West Virginia will take advantage of it, but also the 13 states that are in PJM.
Okay, and for people who don't know, PJM is a regional not regulatory,
it's
but
a regional
distribution.
transmission grid.
Thank you, yes. And it covers 13 states.
I think it's 13.
And the District of Columbia.
Yep.
And West Virginia is part of that. So now, what about the role of West Virginia policymakers, the governor, the legislature, as it relates to the inclusion of renewable resources in our state? What is their role?
Well, of course, we all try to cooperate, and we all want to encourage economic development in the state. And solar facilities and wind facilities, gas-fired facilities, all are an economic boon to the state. And if we could ever build a new coal-fired plant, that would be an economic boon to the state also. But we all work together, and we all want to make sure that the lights stay on, and we are always looking for new opportunities to bring in businesses to West Virginia.
Okay. Now, I would like to understand how you put reliability and resource adequacy into perspective from a West Virginia point of view. the major electric companies that operate here also operate in other states. They have varying approaches to energy transition. Some have more stringent carbon reduction goals than West Virginia does. So do you see this as somehow shifting the heavy lifting of providing reliable electric power more on our shoulders?
We look at it in what's in the best interest of West Virginia, and when we look at these cases, we focus on what's good for West Virginia and what it's going to cost West Virginia ratepayers, and that's what we look at. And yes, some of these companies operate in multiple states and they have different interests, but we focus on what's in West Virginia's interests.
Okay, and I think that's as it should be. What challenges does that present to you as a West Virginia regulator?
Well, one of the biggest challenges we had was a couple years ago when we okayed new pollution control devices for APCO's coal-fired plants, and Virginia, which owns part of APCO, did not want to pay their fair share of those costs, and we said, fine, we are going to pay for it ourselves, and that's what we did. And then Virginia woke up to the fact that they needed the power from those plants, and then they decided they would pay their fair share.
There was an incident with Kentucky too, as I recall.
Well, Kentucky owns part of the Mitchell plant up outside of Wheeling, and so that was the same issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what message do you think West Virginia's utilities need to understand as they look to the future and how they deal with energy transition in this state?
The utilities need to focus first on reliability and how to keep the lights on, and then focus on that, and then look at their policies to make sure that those policies coincide with reliability.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Shifting a little bit, how does the Public Service Commission achieve what is at best a challenging sense of balance between affordability for ratepayers and maintaining the existing infrastructure?
That is a really good question, and it is a very tough job, and we have to back up a little bit and understand that a lot of the infrastructure in West Virginia, and I'm talking about water and sewer, gas, electric, all of the utilities have been around for a long, long time, and a lot of them have been neglected, and a lot of them are in bad shape and need a lot of money to bring them up to standards. And so that is a real challenge to us when utilities file to do these upgrades, and we look at the costs very closely. We look to see what the effect will be on rates, and then we reach a decision.
Okay, well, and I imagine that the terrain, the rural nature of the state and the terrain is also a challenge as far as keeping the infrastructure up.
Yes, it's the same challenge that our Department of Highways face, building roads. Yes, the terrain is a big issue, and we just deal with it. That's why we're called mountaineers.
Okay, very good. So overall, do you think that West Virginia is on the right energy path?
Yes, we are. We are going to keep the lights on, and we are going to be open to new sources of energy, including solar, gas, wind, and nuclear facilities at some point in the future.
Okay, very good. This is your third time on the commission, and you've seen a lot of changes, I know, but what changes have you seen and what has remained the same?
The changes I've seen are the commission is a lot more active than we have been in the past, I think, and the issues are a lot bigger than they used to be, and the utilities are costing more now. And it's a combination of the environmental controls that the government is foisting upon us. It is replacing the aging infrastructure, and so that is changed, that we are much more active now in addressing those problems than we might have been in the past.
Okay, okay. Now, we know that certain problems stay with us over time. So what's been the biggest challenge that you've faced as a regulator over 4 decades?
Oh, without a doubt, it's the EPA. The EPA is trying to make us do things that aren't cost effective, don't make sense, and just seem, in my opinion, meddling.
Okay, well, that was very much to the point. I thank you for your candor. If somebody wanted to get into utility regulation that, as a field, it's very specific and it's very specialized. Would you have any advice for them?
Well, we're always looking for people with a financial background, engineering, legal, and support. We're always looking for people, and if people have an interest, we can hire them, and then we can teach them what they need to know. The biggest thing is they just need to have an interest, because not everybody thinks that utility regulation is interesting. A lot of people find it boring, so if you find it interesting, we can teach you the rest.
Okay, well, after my years with the commission, I can tell you that even if you don't find it interesting at first, once you get into it, you'll find out it really is. You know, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us again today. I have a lot more questions for you. Can we do this again next month?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Thank
wonderful. Our guest today is Chairman Charlotte R. Lane. I will get you right. And I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And this is Inside the PSC, an inside look at the works of the Public Service Commission of West Virginia. Thank you so much for your time. Please join us again.